Alrighty, good evening, everybody. Let's call to order the Town of Basalt Planning and Zoning Commission meeting Tuesday, February 1, 2022 at 6:05 PM. Roll call, please.
Okay. Bill Marin,
Yo.
just 1 second here. Kyle Oberketter. Kyle, I couldn't hear you. Could you just do that again?
Here.
Okay. Gino Rossetti.
Here.
Eric Volzek is absent, won't be here today. Michelle Tebow.
Here.
Rob Levitt is hoping to get here late. Cindy Hirschfeld.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Susan. First order of business is to approve the minutes from January 4th, 2022. Does anybody have any changes or comments or additions, subtractions to make? If so, please state them. If not, let's have a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
We have a first. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a first, we have a second. Susan, a roll call vote or are we just okay with a show of hands?
Let's do a roll call vote on this. Bill Marin,
Yes.
Kyle Oberketter,
Yes.
Gino Rossetti,
Yes.
Eric Volzek is absent, Michelle Tebow,
Yes.
Rob Levitt is absent, Cindy Hirschfeld.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes pass.
All right, thank you very much. A work session on amendments to Chapter 16. Who would be doing that, James?
Yes, thank you. Let me share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, this item is a work session on potential code amendment concepts related to affordable housing. As background, the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, which is known as BAC, has been discussing potential affordable housing code amendments that have arisen out of recent development application reviews. BAC had a work session with the town council in December to get some direction on some of these topics and provide some discussion with them. So this evening, staff wanted to briefly present these topics to give P&Z an idea of what is coming the P&Z's way in terms of affordable housing code amendments, as well as to get a little bit of initial feedback from the P&Z before we get into the specific language at public hearings. So with that, I'd like to briefly go through kind of the topics that are in the staff memo. The first in the memo is the real estate transfer assessment RETA exemption from affordable housing mitigation requirements. The current town code has language that allows developers to reduce their affordable housing mitigation by 10% if they do a 1.5% real estate transfer assessment or RETA. A recent application proposed the exemption for a real estate transfer assessment on a rental housing project, and the BAC commission didn't believe that the town received enough community benefit by getting the RETA on that project. And ultimately on that project, the applicants bumped up their mitigation requirements to not have the 10% reduction, but it raised it as a discussion topic. And so BAC has recommended only applying the exemption for affordable housing mitigation reduction for RETA in cases where there is for sale housing that's proposed. However, council in their work session with BAC actually recommended and provided some direction to actually completely remove the exemption for reducing the affordable housing mitigation for real estate transfer assessment. The council's thoughts were that it's better to actually get the units than it is the cash from the RETA because it's more beneficial to have the units. Item number 2 that we have in the staff memo relates to affordable housing parking. This topic came up during the Cypress Meadows Parcel 5 sketch plan review, as well as the BCC sketch plan review. There was discussion on those projects about whether affordable housing parking requirements should be reduced. And so Bach, in looking at the subject, had staff do a case study with the Roaring Fork Apartments project, where staff reached out to the Roaring Fork Apartments management company, which is Real America. They were also the developer of the Roaring Fork Apartments. And they identified how many tenants' parking spaces were being used because they have a tracking system with permits. And so what they identified is that they had 70 parking spaces that were being used by residents for their 56 units, which is 46 one-bedroom units and 10 two-bedroom units. And so that kind of gave us an idea of how much parking a significant affordable housing project like that is actually using on a day-to-day basis. The town code currently requires 1.5 spaces per bedroom for a one-bedroom unit, and then 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom unit. And then there's a requirement of 2.5 spaces for a 3-bedroom unit in the current town code parking requirements. The R4MD zone district, which is a newer zone district that was established for purposes of trying to foster infill development, actually has different parking requirements. They require 1 space per 1-bedroom. This zone district requires 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom unit, but then maintains the 2 spaces for a 3-bedroom unit. So it gives a break to larger units in terms of the number of spaces. And Bach was supportive of considering amendments to the code to change the requirement for affordable housing parking to what we have in the R4MD zone district, because they felt it lines up pretty well with the case study that we did on the Roaring Fork Apartments. They also thought that if you reduce the parking requirements for the 3-bedroom units, it might help incentivize the creation of 3-bedroom units, which Bach felt we were kind of missing in our affordable housing inventory. So the third topic we have in the staff memo is the affordable housing mitigation requirements. Bach thought it would be good to take a look at the affordable housing mitigation requirements. Currently, we have inclusionary housing requirements that require that 25% of the floor area be mitigated with affordable housing. And we have a commercial mitigation requirement that 15% of the employees generated by a commercial development be mitigated for with affordable housing. So Bach thought it would be a good idea to look at updating those mitigation requirements, but they felt that first the town needed to do some work on the data that we have on the housing gaps. The last time we had a study done was the Greater Roaring Fork Regional Housing Study that was done in 2019, and that was done kind of for all the communities throughout the valley, and it did get pretty Basalt specific in the section about Basalt, but they felt that the pandemic might have altered some of those gaps. So staff is in the process of trying to work through updating some of that data so that we can take a better look at our mitigation requirements after that. So that was the direction that we received from Bach as well as the council in that work session. And then the final topic that we have in the staff memo is a buy down deed restriction process or a voluntary deed restriction process. Bach felt it would be good to add to the town code a process whereby a property owner could voluntarily deed restrict their free market unit. We don't currently have any code provisions that really address a free market property owner that wants to deed restrict their unit voluntarily. We would permit somebody to do so, but we don't really have a process. So Bach thought it would be helpful to include a process in the town code. Staff was thinking it would probably be an administrative process, because if somebody's voluntarily looking to deed restrict their free market housing unit, it shouldn't be that onerous of a process. Bach, kind of related to this topic, has also been exploring the potential of a process like the Veil and Deed program, where local government would pay free market owners to deed restrict their free market units. We heard from some of the Bach members that were kind of close to that Veil and Deed program that it's kind of had mixed results, and maybe they didn't get the bang for their buck out of that program. But nonetheless, Bach is taking a look at whether that's a helpful program to try to create some affordable housing. So those are kind of the topics that Bach has thrown out there for consideration. As I said, we just kind of wanted to introduce those topics to P&Z, and then see if P&Z's got questions or some initial feedback around these topics before staff goes into looking at drafting any code language and having public hearings. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen. And Bill, if you want to go into questions or initial feedback,
let's first do questions from commissioners, and then we can get into comments. And we don't need to do a motion on this, do we? This is just a work session, right? Susan James?
Yeah,
this
correct.
is just a work session. And so,
Yeah.
Really what I think our goal here is to ask questions mainly, and is there additional information that you need us to bring back when we have the public hearing, and really just to have a discussion. There is no motion, but you will be brought back amendments to the code. I think it will be your first meeting in March, which I think is March 1st, right, James? So
yes, correct.
I think that's the meeting where you're going to make a recommendation. You'll actually have a public hearing and make a recommendation to the town council.
Okay, so there's no public component to this either for tonight.
No, and there are, we should check, James, if you can, like who is an attendee up there, in case someone doesn't want to make a comment. But no, this is not a public hearing.
Okay, good. Let's first go through all the commissioners, and we'll just ask questions of staff, and then we'll have a round for comments and discussion. So Michelle, do you want to start? Questions?
Sure. I just have two quick questions. Is there a second property that could be studied for the parking requirements?
We thought the Roaring Fork Apartments was the best case study that we could do, because they kind of have a controlled environment with the fact that they're issuing, parking permits. Willits is more difficult because we do have a significant amount of affordable housing units in Willits, but it's part of a mixed use parking program. And so it's hard to really track where the affordable housing parking is and how many cars are being used. The Aspen Skiing Company project on Block 9 does also give out passes for their cars. so we could see what kind of tracking we could do on that one. That would be the only other project we could probably track at the current time.
What I would suggest is that it doesn't have to be in Basalt. You could probably get information on Truscott, for example. They have parking passes and it's definitely limited there. And you probably wouldn't have to do anything but make a phone call. Because I just think that it would be beneficial just to have more than one source on that, and hopefully they back each other up. That would be my one question. My second question was, I wonder what an example of not getting enough bang for your buck in the Vail Indeed program is, because that program has received a lot of credit, and I frankly, I really don't know, so I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, we had one person on Bach that was close to that project, and they felt that they weren't getting as many units as they thought that they could actually get, but that was what this person identified. That said, Bach is still interested in trying to figure out whether such a program might work here.
Perfect. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Michelle. Gino, any questions?
No, I should ask the question that I had already thought of too. I have no additional.
Okay, thank you, Gino. Kyle, questions?
In relation to the parking, are we pushing the boundaries far enough with this? There's another jurisdiction in Colorado that even has pushed it farther and seems to actually be working pretty well with less parking per bedroom. So curious on where maybe the R4MD, those spaces, how that got decided that was correct, or just a reduction on what the other town code current parking requirements are. So maybe more of a discussion point than a question. And then with the mitigation requirements and looking at data, are we hiring a third party company, or are you guys trying to do this internally? Because it seems that it needs to be a greater roaring fork kind of look, instead of, I don't know how you just isolate Basalt into this equation. See, the whole valley is pretty connected.
Bach has directed staff to look at what we could do in-house in terms of a look at Basalt instead of the greater Roaring Fork Valley. They seem to think that we had a pretty good look at the entire Roaring Fork Valley through the 2019 regional housing study, because it went into the gaps in the individual jurisdictions throughout the valley. So Bach directed staff to take an initial look and see what we could do in terms of updating the data for Basalt. If we were not able to, go into the detail and that they're expecting, then it might require a third party to take a look at it as well. But I would say they probably didn't have a significant discussion about updating the data valley-wide or region-wide.
Okay. And then you guys feel that that is not your job? Like, to have access to that data requires buying third-party data. That's what these companies do. I guess, is that like a good use of the planning department's time in relation to everything else that's going on? And that, not something you have to answer, but just a thought for where taxpayers' dollars are getting spent. So.
That could be a discussion item, certainly.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Kyle. Cindy, do you have any questions of staff on this issue, these issues?
No, I don't think I have any specific questions for staff. I was wondering the same thing as Michelle in terms of more specifics about the about Vale's program, but that sounds like it could be a discussion item.
All right, thank you, Cindy. I don't have any questions myself. The memo is pretty clear. I think what we'll do now is go back through the same process and we can give comments to staff and have a discussion back and forth. So Michelle, would you like to start?
Sure. Oh, yeah. I generally agree with the reduction in the parking requirement. I think that that's the right direction to go. And I just don't want anybody to get thrown under the bus because we don't do enough research to support the reduction. But I think it's a great direction because parking does cost a lot. And I think that impacts the number of units that get offered and the quality of the units.
Bye-bye.
I'm not so worried about the mitigation study because I just think we know that it does need to happen. But I'm not too worried about that because we just know that there needs to be more. So I'm generally in support of, I think, everything that they're talking about. Item number 1, removing the exemption. I am in support of that for certain. It's less risk to the town if the developer builds the units than if town has cash. It's just too volatile of a market and obviously very expensive. So those are my comments.
Yes, Matt.
Thank you, Michelle. While we're waiting for Gino to finish his phone conversation, let's go to Kyle. Kyle, do you have any comments about all of these points?
I think maybe it could be worth looking at other jurisdictions within ski towns, mountain towns for what their parking codes are. There's one that I'm currently working in that 3 beds are 2 spots, 2 beds are 1.5, and 1 bed is 1. Again, just kind of pushing the limits, but their research has shown that is still enough parking in relation to how we build attainable housing. So kind of same type of clientele, and seems to be still working pretty well for them. So maybe even looking at it one step further.
Could you please restate what the parking requirements were that you were looking at?
Yep. So 1 bed is 1 spot, 2 beds is 1.5, 3 is 2 spots.
Okay, thanks.
Another interesting point, kind of off the parking, but is they have EV requirements, but then they also have EV prep requirements. So you have to pull conduit and get everything ready. You don't have to actually install the chargers, but that is a large cost if you want to retrofit and come back. So if you get that all put in, it allows you to kind of keep up with the changing times much easier than having to go back, because when you buy the transformer includes all the additional power that may come down the pipe in the next 10 years or so. So can greatly offset future expenses potentially. I do think the mitigation requirements, there should be some larger study done. I know 2019 is recent, but a lot has changed, and the valley kind of acts as one total moving piece, and I think it'd be very hard to just mitigate within Basalt. So I know that's very expensive and much harder to get people more jurisdictions around, but I think it's very important if we do it that way. It seems to be maybe more cost efficient. And that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Gino, do you have comments on these points to deliver to council?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Cindy, do you have any comments in addition to the packet?
Well, first of all, one quick question for Kyle. I missed, what was the town that you were citing for the lower parking?
It's the Durango code.
Oh, Durango. Okay. I'm definitely in favor of the of number one, the part about not applying that payment to the rental property, because I felt like that was a confusing aspect of that one application for us to kind of try to forecast what might happen with that. So I think that would certainly streamline some of the decision making with rental projects. Regarding mitigation, yeah, I think we need more specific data and, and I agree with the points made about it coming from a regional valley perspective, in addition to a basalt focused perspective. And then, yeah, I would be interested to know more about, I'm vaguely familiar with the Vale project. I've looked at the website and stuff for it, but I would be interested to hear more about how that has worked out specifically, and if it's something that we would want to look into more. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Rob, you did not get a chance to ask questions with the rest of the commission. Would you like to ask questions of staff, and at the same time put your comments forth on all of these points if you have them?
Oop, Rob, you're mute. You're
muted.
I have a voice.
Yes,
I'm not comfortable making a code change based on one case study. So I'd like to see more data before we go down that road. And I don't know what I missed, but that's my one comment.
Do you have comments on the RETA or any of the other mitigation components?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right. We will see this again, so anyway, thank you, Rob. I think we got everybody. Let me put it forth my comments. As far as the RETA, I'm in favor of removing that. I think the analysis of that is fine and acceptable. The parking requirements, I've always chafed at the parking requirements, especially when they're within the TOD range. Though I do, I am more accepting of the data to reduce it to the level shown as the what is the zone district R4MD. I think that's fine, but I think that also as far as the parking reduction, I think an applicant should have the ability to petition the town for a further parking reduction within a TOD area, but that should be, presented to council and commission for review, backed up by a solid data-driven plan. I don't think they should just say, well, we want less parking because it's a good thing. If they want to do that, they need to provide a sound justification for doing it based on numbers, studies, and traffic engineering, or transit engineering. So that's my thought on that. And as far as the mitigation requirements, I'm mixed about that. I think that requires further discussion, but I don't see that as a big issue. The voluntary buy down process, it's a small point, but I agree wholeheartedly with that. So that's my thoughts on this. Do we need to provide any further direction to staff?
Gino did not get a chance to speak. He was away.
No, he did. He
had stepped away, and I went for him.
All right, Gino, do you have any further comments to make about this?
No, not really. I think what has been said is pretty universal. I also would agree with Rob that I don't want to do too much investigation with only one pilot project. I think that there should be more, because this is a pretty serious undertaking. And with that, I'm going to, since we're not voting at all, I'm going to again apologize for having to leave but I love my wife more than I love you guys. And so I'll just hang up with a broad statement to Susan. Thank you so much. We love you for all you've done, and best of luck to you. Thank you. Thank you to all the council members.
Thank you, Gino. That was a very good assessment and a very good tribute to Susan. All right, from staff standpoint, do we need to do anything more on this one issue?
I think your feedback's been helpful. Staff, per some of the comments, will certainly look at other case studies and other municipalities. Take Michelle's thought to talk to Aspen about Truscott and maybe some other examples as well.
All right, thank you. Let's, if we're all done with this issue, let's move on to update on Basalt Forward projects.
Okay.
Susan?
Sure. Well, there's three components of Basalt Forward. There's the affordable housing piece, the green initiatives, and then the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. So maybe we'll do a high level on the affordable housing. As you guys know, that we hired Ted Borschelt from Aspen Sotheby to kind of help the town look at projects and look at properties and talk about prices and opportunities there. The town council reviewed in a work session kind of a game plan for moving forward. They heard presentations from Basalt Vista, from Shafa, about different tools that are out there for affordable housing. And now it's really in Bach's hands. And James and Sarah, who are both here, are the staff members that kind of help lead the discussions on Bach. So, James, do you want to kind of add information about where we are with affordable housing?
Yeah, the Bach group wanted to kind of start off by understanding what's out there in terms of potential to purchase, properties for affordable housing development, as well as, the potential to purchase units. So their initial step is going to be likely having an executive session with Ted Borschelt, who's the town's consulting real estate person, and get kind of the lay of the land in terms of what's available out there, potentially for purchase of land or purchase of buy downs, as kind of a first step in terms of making recommendations on, how the town might want to spend the affordable housing monies from the Basalt Forward 2030. And so they're scheduled to kind of take that first step in a week or two here.
James, can I ask a quick question? What do we call affordable, or what, as we talk about this on an AMI level?
Well, we currently have in our town guidelines three different categories. We've got category 1, which is 80% of AMI and below. We've got category 2, which is 81% to 100% of AMI. And then we've got category 3, which is 101 to 120% of AMI. So generally the town's system is set up for 120% of AMI and below is affordable housing. But there's been quite a bit of conversation at Bach about, what should we be looking at and keying towards for creation of affordable housing. And so they wanted to kind of look at the gaps before they, made recommendations on creating any specific units.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about Basalt Forward and affordable housing? If not, I'll move on to the green initiatives. So the before the election, when the Capital Needs Committee was still meeting. We had a subcommittee made up of representatives from the school district, Holy Cross, and the town of Basalt staff, really trying to look at what really kind of made sense in terms of a renewable energy and battery storage program. And so we entered into a memorandum of understanding with the school district that had an option if the election didn't pass, and an option if it did, and of course it did. So the good news is that we've been working with the school district, and Holy Cross has just been really an awesome partner to really kind of look at, you know, what made sense in terms of a request for proposals. So we developed a request for proposals, and we got 8 different firms replying. And the town at the last council meeting approved going forward with McKinstry. I'm probably slightly pronouncing it wrong, but again, the field of applicants was really strong. Holy Cross, and the town of Basalt and CORE participated in the interviews with the different consulting teams. So they'll be working on kind of a strategic plan for developing a photovoltaic system with like provide like a 0.5 megawatt system, and then making a design for one. So we had identified several locations, and Holy Cross had done kind of an initial review. So we'll be kicking that off. I think it's the 15th is the big kickoff meeting. So it should be a very interesting and really fun part of the Basalt Forward process. And Sarah, who's here, but her picture isn't being shown, I think mainly because she's at home with COVID in her house. But anything else, Sarah, that you think is worthy of kind of adding on that?
Not really. I think you pretty much would have said what I said, except for it's McKinstry is the name of the firm. And it was difficult. We had a lot of great applicants, and we had to whittle it down from 8 to 4 that were interviewed. And I think that there was a lot of strong candidates in there. But I think we picked the strongest. And yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. Just that, it's going to be a great project moving forward.
Okay. So then any questions?
Real quick, just, it's a half a megawatt?
Up to half.
Approximately how much land does that take?
You know, I don't think I want to respond on the fly, but it was, we were looking at different spots on the high school property, so we could get, using some school property and the roof and stuff, we could get up to the 0.5 megawatt.
Susan?
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we had discussed land at their water treatment center for
Yes,
possible
that's
solar.
one of the sites that they'll be evaluating.
Okay.
So they'll be
Just wondering
looking
if it's
at up the whole band of the open space property that we own above Old Town. They'll be looking at that, at the feasibility of that. Yes.
Okay.
Did Holy Cross ever say to you, we got pushed back on a big multifamily and we were trying to put PV everywhere, and they were just like, if you could spend your money a lot more efficiently if you just outsource this to a big solar farm. You may not get the offsets, but as a general theme to the world, we can use this and create a lot more offset than you are trying to accomplish with this amount of money. Did they ever? I know our goal is to keep it in Basalt, but it's a bigger question and a bigger conversation about how we're spending this and hiring consultants.
Kyle, it is a bigger conversation. Part of this really also was to, one, create resiliency for the school district. So this battery storage piece of it is such a big component of this. So that battery storage system, you know, first, it really helps the grid and helps them not over kind of build, because they can manage the electricity in the storage, but also strategically, we're trying to get resiliency so that if we have events where power goes off, that we, that's one reason that the school is so attractive, that so that we could build that resiliency in. So it's a two-part thing. The other thing that I would say, and it is part of a larger discussion in terms potentially about funding, but the green team, a number of years ago, really went very strongly into that system of where you, you're entering into a long-term contract with someone who's building these PV panels. For example, they do it at like the Garfield airport, and then you're buying this system, and you're not really paying, you're not, at year 15, you're kind of breaking even, and they last 30 years. In the end, it was really kind of an interesting exercise, because we did a lot of negotiation, the town, and in the end, the town council decided that it really wasn't the best use of town resources. And there were a number of reasons for that, but it was kind of an interesting kind of question, because we did initially, as I said, 10 years ago, kind of go in that direction. But here, we're trying to really hit other goals.
And how much battery storage do we get? Are we trying to get 1 day of use if they have no power, or?
That's part of the study. That's part of the process that they'll be working on that piece of it. So then,
I guess my final comment is just Holy Cross's goal is to get their energy from non-carbon places. So you're already buying energy from the person who's producing the most efficient energy from non-carbon places. So you're by helping them offset, you're buying from the same place, and they can do it much more efficiently than we can, but outside of the battery storage. So just as a bigger picture, they are trying to reach the goal that all these little communities are trying to do, and by helping them get there.
and I don't know if you know this, but you can't really see that over here. We have the town of Basalt is part of the peer program, so we on town facilities and all the town use of electricity, we do pay the premium, so that we're buying all renewable energy. So I'll move on to the last one, which is the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. And last Friday, we issued 2 RFPs for the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. One was the request for proposals for the design services, which includes a wide variety of professional services from, landscape architecture, civil engineering, and that one is due the end of March. It's like March 25th. And then the other proposal is for a construction manager, general contractor, a GMGC, and that one also was issued on Friday, and it's just due the day before. And the idea on that is really to have the construction manager involved at day one in evaluating everything from a cost perspective, so we don't get to the end and find that we can't afford the project. The important piece for the P&Z is actually the design, the design process. So it's envisioned that Hopefully, most of that work on the design will be done in 2022. And you may or may not have seen that we've been working on a very detailed base map. A lot of surveying has been done out there by Smeeser Gordon Meyer. And we have, in the RFP, we gave the proposer the task of really coming up with a good citizen participation, public input process. But we made it clear that the P&Z was really going to be the lead review board in terms of providing recommendations to the town council on the plans for Midland Avenue. So the first kind of piece of this is a lot of data gathering, but then they will be, the designer will prepare 3 conceptual plans and then make a recommendation to the town council, and that process involves at least 3 meetings, I believe, with the P&Z, and then the P&Z also has an opportunity to review the plans at the 30% level, the 60% level, and the 90% level. So there's a lot of opportunity really built in here for the P&Z to kind of help with the design process for that, which I thought you guys would be excited about since the Midland Avenue Streetscape project was such a key part of implementing the master plan.
Super exciting.
So Susan, is there an opportunity for a member of P&Z to be on the selection committee for the design team?
Well, I was talking about that with Ryan Mahoney today, and so we'll be talking about who will be part of the selection committee. So it really hasn't been decided yet, but one of the options is to have members of the P&Z on there.
Okay, so yeah, because if we're going to be deeply involved with it, I think it may be beneficial to have one of our members on that selection committee.
Any other comments on that from folks? Okay, any questions about the process? Okay, the last item is really kind of talking about staff updates. And I did want to, before I forget, there is kind of one comment I wanted to make in response to Kyle's comment about the electric chargers. And that was really good feedback. We actually heard that from one of our folks that was on the other side. Through negotiation, we've gotten EV chargers in the private parking areas as part of the P&Z's and the town council's kind of input on those land use reviews. And what we kind of, the takeaway on that was really that you need to plan for it up front, and you need to make sure that electricity is there to provide service. So we are processing some code amendments to Chapter 18, and so we're looking at requirements to have things electric ready and for EV chargers. So we were kind of, may not be 100% correct on that. I think we were looking at if you were providing parking for more than 8 or 9 spaces that you had to provide electricity for charging stations. What is it, Sarah? I can't see your hands.
Sorry, I believe that it's 9.
9, okay.
9 is the tipping point.
Yep. So that is a good comment. Both Cypress Meadows, Parcel 5, excuse me, and the BCC applications, neither one of them the applications are ready yet to be included in the process, but they're moving forward. Excuse me. The Parks, Open Space and Trails Committee's working on Phase 2 of the Basalt River Park. They're reviewing, they're getting ready with the bid package for Phase 2 and reviewing kind of the play features that are included in Phase 2 of the park. Stedman Clinic, excuse me, Stedman Clinic is working on their certificate of occupancy items, and so they're hoping they're going to kind of have a phased occupancy. James, do you want to say anything more about that one?
Yeah, they're phased occupancy in the next week or so. They're hoping to start getting their staff in there to kind of fit out and stock everything. And then they are looking to, the way I understand it, start welcoming the public near the end of March, but they haven't given us an exact date. And then ultimately, they still have to make some improvements to the Reed Street Park and the landscaping around the project. So that would happen in the early spring and hopefully be ready by mid-June is what they've indicated.
So James, is there any other projects you think that we should give any updates to?
Well, P&Z will probably be looking at code amendments as we discussed today in March related to the affordable housing. We do have a couple of special review and site plan review applications. We've got a site plan review application for a single family house on one of the Broughton subdivision lots, which is on Original Road. And P&Z will likely be seeing that early March. And then there's also a special review in the Hill District for some adjustment to setbacks for a garage that P&Z will be looking at in March. So there's a couple of smaller applications that you'll see in March and then some code amendments. And so I think those are the updates for the near term anyway.
You know, right now we're really busy with all of the Basalt Forward projects and with construction right now. So we as staff have been extremely busy. But it will be good to see kind of the fruition of the Basalt River Park. The gallery building, that's the last private building that is part of the River Center, and they're looking to get their full building permit by Valentine's Day, and that's where Design Workshop is going to occupy the office space. There was something else I actually wanted to add about construction, and it's kind of escaping me at this minute, but I think that's generally all the updates I have.
Okay, but before we get into commissioner comments, I do want to make a statement. Susan, this has been a long and mostly smooth ride. I wish you the best of luck in what's going on after this. But, you and I have been speaking probably once a month since I started this in 1998. And that's about 24 years. And other than my immediate family, there's no other people I have been in more direct communication than you. So I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for the town and for us as a commission and me personally. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Bill. I really appreciate it. So I got a lot of really nice emails from everyone, and it's been it was a really big decision for me because I love Basalt and love planning, so stop me before I plan again. So I really enjoyed working for the P&Z in the town, and this is pretty hard being in the last meeting, but thank you for all your support and good work. I mean, the P&Z has always been a board that really does great work, and it's been a pleasure working for you guys.
Thank you again. And anyone else have any comments to make before we adjourn?
I think it's worth noting that Susan's depth of knowledge about all things basalt has only been exceeded by her ability to keep her mouth closed at different times during meetings. And did somebody pick up our gift card?
Uh-oh.
P&Z members?
Eric indicated that the P&Z has gotten a gift card for you, Susan, and I am going to be able to pick it up tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jim.
I hope it's not a pool pass.
Not a big-
Well, I have to tell you, the last time I swam in the Basalt pool, I was totally in disguise, and I walked towards the pool, and like it was, hi Susan, hi Susan, hi Susan, hi Susan, hi Susan, hi Susan. So it was not exactly, you know, when you're in your bathing suit, do you want to talk to everyone?
Susan, you're staying in Basalt, right?
I'm staying in the
valley?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'll figure out what I'm going to do when I get there. I still have to clean out my desk. And James could tell you what it looks like right now.
Well, I hope you're going to do nothing for a good long while.
Yeah, probably do nothing for a good long while.
Well, congratulations, Susan. And I can't talk much because I'll just start crying, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've exhausted all of this. So if someone wants to make a motion to adjourn, we're ready for it.
I'll make a
So
motion.
moved.
Okay, we have a first and we have a second. Take your picks as to who's who.
I have Rob was first and Cindy was second, I think.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Was that close enough? Or
I think it was
not?
Michelle. It was
What?
Michelle.
Michelle?
It was Michelle.
Okay, sorry.
We,
I don't want it to
I have
end.
two-
Forget it. It was
I-
not me.
And I think you guys can all just raise your hand on this one.
Susan can't make the motion on her last meeting? Is that allowed?
No, she's not appointed.
Who's going to be running our meeting until there's another planner hired?
James
The
is
fabulous
James is
Mr.
going to
James.
be running it.
Okay.
All right, so all in favor of adjournment?
Hi.
Thank you.
Everybody have a wonderful evening. And again, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Thank
Susan.
you, Susan.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Bye.